Have you ever just known something without being able to explain how or why? You know, that gut feeling that turned out to be absolutely right? Today, I want to share with you how intuition works, how I think it works, why we often ignore it, and some real life stories of when trusting my intuition led to some incredible things. So stick around, I'll even give you some practical tips on how to tune into your inner compass. So, what is intuition really? It's an inner knowing. It's a whisper from inside of you that guides you, often doesn't have any logical explanation. It's something that can feel very different for each one of us. And maybe you have been ignoring it because many of us do dismiss it. We think, oh, it's a coincidence or I'm making things up, right? So I want to talk today about how it works from a spiritual perspective, also from a mind brain perspective, why it's important, and how to learn to trust it. And I'm also going to share and weave a few personal stories in to when my intuition was spot on, and it's kind of fun actually to start to pay attention. So at its core, intuition is like your inner compass. It's not about reasoning or overthinking. It's really about tuning into something deeper, your subconscious mind, your connection to the universe. Scientists will say intuition is your brain processing information faster than you realize. And spiritually, intuition feels like divine guidance. But here's the thing, whether you think it's science, whether you think it's spirit, whether you think it's both, intuition is a tool each one of us has. And the challenge is learning to listen. So remember, I am a baby boomer, right? So I was born in the late 50s. But as I look back on my life, I realize that I was always very intuitive, and many of the big decisions I made in my life, I made on a gut feeling, not necessarily facts, just because it felt right. So here's an example. At one point, pretty early in my career in the 80s, I had the opportunity of, I think, two different jobs, right? One of them just didn't feel right. I don't know how else to explain it. It would have required relocating. I had just gotten married. When I met with the people, there was just something that didn't seem right and seemed off with it. It would have taken me down one career path. And then at the same time, I was offered another job really close to where I lived with great people, and it ended up launching pretty much my career. And I just knew it was right. There was really no question in my mind that this was the one to take. And doors started opening for me as a result of that job. And um, how did I know? I don't know. On paper, the other job probably was better, but something told me it wouldn't be the right choice for me. There's also a time that I'll share with you, and then I'm going to share a few more towards the end as well, where this was about more than 10 years ago when I was deep into my spiritual seeking days, and I had been connected with a spiritual community. And I drove like a half hour, went to their Sunday morning gathering, and as I walked in the door, there was a sign for One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. And I come to find out that the people who created that and formed that community went there. But when I saw that sign, it was as if I knew at some point I was going to go there. Now, granted, at the time, I had strayed away from any spirituality. I was raised Catholic, but had long put religion behind me. I didn't know what my spirituality was, but I just knew I'm going to go there someday. And sure enough, about 7 or 8 years later, I ended up there in their program. It was just a knowing. um, I believe divinely orchestrated as well. And it's also at that same point in my life, I met somebody, and I met many people then, who I just had this instant connection with, as if we had known each other, even though we just met, right? These were all things that I tuned into. So the thing is, because I've always felt that way and I've always had this knowing, I just went with it. And like I said, I've made many decisions in my life based on my gut. And I do think that that's something we can often overlook. So what I started doing, and this is a tip for you, if you're trying to connect with your intuition, when I get hits like that, I write them down in my journal just to see if they ever come true. And I'll give you a few examples in a moment too of when I did that. And sometimes it takes a while, but they ended up happening as well. So why do we ignore this? And why don't we trust it? Sometimes we're afraid we're going to be wrong. We're afraid we're going to make the bad decision. Now, I will say, I don't think there's any bad decisions. There's just decisions that take us down different paths. So is there really a bad decision? I'm not sure. We also tend to overthink. We let our logic override that gut feeling, right? And until we learn to trust that gut feeling, which is trying to tell us something, we can tend to overthink. And then I think culturally, we're just conditioned to prioritize facts over feelings. So that is just, the way many of us were raised. I'll share another couple of stories here personally. I think that I will share that recently here in the US, there was an election. And while I definitely had my sense of who I wished would prevail, there was something in me that just knew it wasn't going to work out that way for whatever reason. And I didn't really know why. And I really had this sense, and I still have this sense, that the next couple of years, and this is 2024 when I'm recording this, are going to bring a lot of change. And granted, yes, everybody is saying that, but I kind of knew this before everybody was talking about it. It's just this feeling that I had. Likewise, at the beginning of this year, I knew the way I brought myself out into the world was going to change. And here I am with the YouTube channel. I was going to start to bring in different modalities into my work, and I will be doing that next year. These were things that I just knew. Didn't really quite know how they were going to unfold, but I knew that it was unfolding. I've also can share with you that using crystal grids, which is something that I do, I've also, excuse me, been able to, I guess in some people might say manifest. Some people may say it was just a coincidence. Attendees at a workshop, the exact number that I wanted at the right time. It doesn't always work. But again, if I feel like it's true and if I feel like it's going to happen, it usually does. And then there's all sorts of little things, right? You think about somebody and they call, right? Or you think about something and suddenly then you get, this just happened. My daughter and I were talking about she's buying a new mattress, and I said, well, maybe this store will have a sale. And in the mail, like physical mail that day, was a flyer for that place, and they're having a sale. Okay. So I guess somehow I knew that was going to happen. So the truth is, intuition doesn't always make sense at first, but in hindsight, it's often spot on, which is why I say write these little things down, because you never know. I also found that when I really adopted mindful practices and started a meditation practice, and I was able to create stillness in my mind, I also was able to hear that intuition. And I started with just a few minutes a day. And I have lots of videos here on my channel that I'll put the link up in here somewhere here that you can check out. when my spiritual journey kind of took off over 10 years ago, I remember walking because I was walking every day. And I remember hearing voices. I don't know how else to explain it, but something trying to get my attention. And had started a meditation practice. And when I started journaling, that is when I really started to connect with the fact that I had a lot inside of me that needed to be expressed, that my self was really being diminished and it was aching to get out. So my intuition led me to start to explore and totally change my career to what I'm doing today. The other thing is pay attention to how your body reacts when you feel like something is a yes, or when you have a knowing, when you get a gut feeling. How does it feel in your body? And everybody might feel it different, right? Some people literally feel it in their gut, right? Interestingly enough, I get pressure in the back of my head, which is, I think, unusual, but it doesn't really matter how you feel it. You might get goosebumps, right? It doesn't matter how you feel it. What matters is start to tune into it because your body knows and is speaking to you, right? And write down these feelings, write down these nudges, because over time you'll start to see patterns. And actually, it's a lot of fun. If you start with some simple things, not life-changing decisions, but simple things, you can start to see that you're pretty tuned in and you may not realize how tuned in you are. And then practice with some very simple choices. You know, if you're trying to choose a new book to read, use your intuition to say which one would I enjoy most right now, right? Or which way to walk. Um, you know, often, and this actually just happened to me today. I was going out to go to my office, and then I had to go meet to somebody, but I didn't know what time I was meeting them. Okay, I knew kind of within an hour, but so I was sitting at home thinking, well, when should I leave and go to my office and then wait to hear from them? And suddenly I got this nudge, go now, go now. So I'm like, okay, I'll go now. So I went, made a stop, went to my office, literally dropped some things off in my office I needed to drop off when I got a text from my friend that they would be able to meet me in an hour, and I was exactly an hour away. That's a simple thing, right? But I wrote it down. I made a mental note of it is, okay. So you could really start to see how this can play into your life in some fun, interesting and fun ways. So intuition is your inner guide. It's always there to navigate with you, life's twists and turns. Whether you think it's your brain, or whether you think it's spirit, the more you listen to it, the stronger it will become. And when you begin to trust it, all sorts of magical things can happen. So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Think about a time when you trusted your intuition and what happened. How could you start tuning into that inner wisdom more? And share with me in the comments. I'd love to hear these stories. So thank you again. And if you like this content, as I share more about my life and the way I live, be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Love to hear your comments below. And you can always subscribe to my newsletter as well, where I share with my email readers a bit more. Okay, take care. And remember, listen to that inner voice.